Hi, everybody. This is another edition of Fantasy Huddle. I'm Randy Shaver along with Kevin Gorg. Our show sponsored by Aquarius Home Services. We're here in the Aquarius Home Services studio. Also, Minnesota Masonic Charities, 10K Construction, and Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood. Well, we're doing this show on Wednesday morning, and the news just broke this morning about Adam Thielen, and the Vikings make a trade for the 35-year-old receiver to jump on board. Jordan Addison out for the first 3 games because of the suspension. The Vikings do give up some draft choices, a 5th-round pick in 26 and a 4th-round choice in 2027. They get a couple of picks back in this deal. Your overall thoughts about the Thielen trade?
Well, I'm excited for the Vikings. I think it's a really good football move for Minnesota. On a fantasy perspective, we'll get into it a little bit here. There'll be some ripple effects early. I think long-term, I would really take that down a few notches. But for Minnesota's sake, with Jalen Naylor hurt and with the suspension to Addison, this was needed. And you've got a guy that's coming in that's comfortable in this system, that the team knows, that worked out in the offseason with J.J. McCarthy. So it's a plug-and-play type of scenario for a game that's now a little over a week away. And it's great news for the Minnesota Vikings. I don't know how significant a move it will be for all of us in the fantasy world. I mean, let's be honest. Thielen at this point in his career at age 35, maybe the first few weeks, Randy, with the injuries and being the number 2 guy behind JJ, there are certainly cases to be made to use this guy in daily, but long-term, he's not going to be one of your top 3 receivers on any fantasy squad.
In my drafts, he's probably sometimes not even chosen in a draft. I would say the first 3 weeks, he's a possession receiver. That's really what he is. He is right now in his career. And maybe J.J. McCarthy needs that kind of guy as a safety blanket for him early in the season. When Addison comes back, probably will reduce his value even more fantasy-wise. But I agree. It's a great football move for this team. And it's a great move for Adam, too. I know Adam and his family, this is where they want to be. He's from Detroit Lakes. This is home for him. And so there's good feelings all around in this trade. Another trade we should talk about before we dive into the final cuts in preseason, end of preseason, the Lions trade Tim Patrick to the Jags. And that opens up your guy.
My guy.
Your guy.
It's
Tesla, baby.
It's Tesla season now for sure in Detroit. And again, I will temper my affections a little bit because of the weapons starting in the backfield.
He's behind a lot of guys.
You got Gibbs, you got Montgomery, you got your guy Laporta, you got the top receiver.
You got Williams, you got St. Brown.
All that being said, think of Adam Thielen when he first started making noise in Minnesota. That's who this guy is. Yeah. He scored in the last 3 preseason games. He's clearly a guy that's got a ton of upside. For those that play in dynasty leagues where you're keeping guys for years at a time,
very smart.
Go get him for sure. If you're in a redraft league where in another 6-8 months you're going to be redoing this, we'll see where it all goes. He's still a late round flyer, but he's got a ton of upside.
And it's a guy that you keep an eye on for the waiver wires as the season moves along, especially if an injury happens in Detroit.
Either one of those top guys goes down to Detroit, he becomes a weapon that you can plug and play in your fantasy rosters, and he's one of your top receivers. But again, that's if Amon-Ra St. Brown or Jameson Williams misses any significant time. Right now, he's at least 3rd or 4th in that pecking order, including Laporta.
Just so you know, next week we will dive into all of the games. We will break down each of those games and give you fantasy choices to think about as you set your lineups. A lot of people are still drafting, trying to get through the final week or so of drafting players. And so we'll dive into some of that here today. Here's some preseason 3 final cut thoughts from me as we head into this week. The big news of Terry McLaurin signing with Washington, 3 years, $96 million deal. I'm glad I drafted him in a lot of my drafts before all this news kind of got crazy where he maybe was going to be traded or whatever. So I'm super happy about that. Joe Mixon out for the first 4 weeks. We kind of knew this was coming. This is not a big surprise. Who knows if he'll be ready after the first 4 weeks? Nick Chubb is sitting there. They've got Woody Marks, the rookie running back. That backfield is kind of a mess right now in
Avoid
Houston.
them if you can.
Yeah, Damian Pierce is there too. It's a mess. So, do that with what you may. And Josh Downs, for me, to me, when I obviously he makes the cut. That's not the issue. It's that Daniel Jones is the starter. For me, that's the issue now, because Daniel Jones, when he played for the Giants before he got traded to the Vikings, and Wan'Dale Robinson was their number 2 receiver in New York, he got 140 targets last year during the year. Daniel Jones is going to find Josh Downs in that Indianapolis offense, which has, Pittman, it has Warren. They've got some guys to throw to. So those are my 3 kind of mental notes for me from the final cuts. Not so much players making teams, but the McLaurin news, Joe Mixon and Josh Downs, and because Daniel Jones was named the starter for the Colts. How about you?
Well, I think that is big news. Danny Dimes was the guy. If you have Colts like Tyler Warren, like Josh Downs, these are players that are depending on a quarterback that can throw the football consistently. And I think we talked about this from show 1. That was the guy you wanted. The other significant news for me revolves around a similar situation in Cleveland, where I know Joe Flacco's 100 years old, but the guy's still good, and he still throws the football. And so now
you're not going to talk about the Joker, will you?
No, I'm going to talk about Jerry Jeudy, another guy I love, because I had my concerns. If they're going to go with one of their younger quarterbacks, Jerry Judy's being, he's their wide receiver number 1. He's going to be certainly cut back in the amount of opportunities he'll have to score points. Now, with Joe Flacco, a guy that loves to throw the football, Jerry Jeudy gets elevated big time. All receivers in Cleveland do. And so I think it's very similar news to what we're seeing in Indy. And I think those are 2 of the biggest storylines. And back to McLaurin, he clearly has great chemistry with Jaden Daniels. The only concern I have is he scored a ton of touchdowns last year. And with Deebo Samuel now in the mix, I just want to see how that's going to play out. I've got a couple shares of McLaurin. I'm a huge fan. But there will be a ripple effect with Deebo Samuel in the red zone. I just want to see how that plays out.
It might be a better football move than a fantasy move, I would say. And obviously, I think there's a lot of high expectations in Washington that this football team can be very good, maybe even win the NFC East and make a deep run into the playoffs again. So football-wise, a great move. He deserved the money. I mean, the guy's a great receiver.
He's a stud.
I'm glad he didn't get traded, because that would have thrown a lot of different ripple effects across the league and fantasy football in general. So those are our thoughts on those. Now, we wanted to spend some time today talking about 6 players who can break fantasy football in 2025. And here are the 6 players that I'm going to put up. My number 1 is Christian McCaffrey. He's healthy. He's going to catch the football. How much is he going to run the ball? Yes, they've got a great running back behind him and in the Guerrero guy. But I really think that McCaffrey, because everybody got burned so badly last year, that he could break fantasy this year. My number 2 is your guy, Chase Brown. I think people early in drafts avoided him. I think he's picked up a lot of steam over the last couple of weeks. I think he's a guy that could break it. My 3rd guy is Drake London. He had 100 catches last year, highest red zone target share in 2024. He's got Penix as the quarterback. I think I've got Drake London in quite a few of my leagues. I'm super high on him. My 4th guy is Kenneth Walker from Seattle. Yeah, I know. He's injury prone. No, hear me out. Injury prone. But when he's healthy, he's really super good, especially fantasy related. So, we're talking about guys that could break fantasy, guys that maybe you're afraid to take, or, maybe you only have them in 1 or 2 of your leagues, but could,
you could be a league winner. If Walker plays 17 games, I am with you, Randy.
Yep.
He has the skill set to break it, because if you get him middle part of your draft, and there is a lot of apprehension around Kenneth Walker, my reaction, I think, is more the norm. If he ends up playing 17 games and being a top 2 or 3 running back in the league, that's how you win in fantasy football.
Yep. My number 5 is Drake May.
Oh, yes.
I don't like him. I don't have him on many teams, and that's why I put him on this list, because he'll probably break me. He'll probably break me this year. So that's why I put Drake May, the quarterback for New England. And my number 6 is Trey McBride, the tight end for Arizona. And the reason why, 29% target share last year with the Cardinals. He's got a path to 100 receptions. Next to Brock Bowers, he's the best tight end in the league, fantasy related. And I just think that if you value tight ends and you don't get Bowers, but you get McBride, he's a guy that could help carry you through 2025. So those are my 6 players who can break fantasy football this year. How about your 6?
My 6, my number 1 is Nico Collins in Houston. My number 2 is going to be George Kittle, the tight end in San Francisco. Malik Neighbors, wide receiver for New York, is my number 3. Jaden Daniels, the quarterback we referenced in the McLaurin signing, is my 4. CeeDee Lamb in Dallas is my 5. And Bijan Robinson, the running back in Atlanta, is number 6. I'll start with Nico Collins. Joe Mixon out for at least the first month, probably closer to 6 or 8 weeks when you look at the rehab involved with this. They're in the red zone. That backfield's a hot mess. This is the guy that's going to, I think he legitimately could score 15 to 20 touchdowns. They have a talented quarterback. They don't have a tight end that they trust in the red zone. Nico Collins, to me, is such a potential league winner for you. George Kittle in San Francisco, no Deebo Samuels, we talked about now in the red zone. You've got, Christian McCaffrey, who they're going to try to keep healthy, maybe a few less touches in that smaller area of the field. And they are favored, Randy, right now in Vegas. In 15 of their 17 games, San Fran has a soft schedule. Kittle should have a huge year. Malik Neighbors, to me, this guy had 170 targets as a rookie.
Just got to get the ball to him, though. That's going to be the question.
Look who his quarterbacks were last year. Something called Danny DeVito was back there slinging Jersey Mike subs. Like, this guy blew up last year, and he had no quarterback play. Now he's, I think, got 2 guys in Russell Wilson and Jackson Dart that are actually legitimate quarterbacks. Malik Neighbors could be huge this year. Jaden Daniels, with the move of Robinson, that backfield to me is super interesting. He's still going to run them in. Now he's got McLaurin and he's got Deebo in the red zone. And this is a guy that ran for almost 900 yards and 6 touchdowns last year. Jaden Daniels, of the running quarterbacks, he might be my favorite. And that's saying something when you think of how good Lamar and Josh and those guys are. I went to CeeDee Lamb in Dallas. I have no shares of this guy yet, Randy. I've got half my drafts coming this weekend.
Dallas scares me. Dallas just scares me. Dak Prescott health scares me.
And that's the key. If you're going to take a chance on a guy like CeeDee Lamb, that was my point. Like last year, Dak missed half the year and his numbers really plummeted. 2 years ago with Dak Prescott, 1,749 yards, 135 catches, and 12 TDs. And now we're going to add George Pickens to take some pressure in that coverage off of CeeDee Lamb. Again, boomer bust. This guy could blow up fantasy. And Bijan Robinson, if you like a guy that consistently produces, he's played in 17 games in both of his first 2 seasons. He's only 23 years old. The rushing numbers are obvious. 1,456 yards, 14 touchdowns. But I think they have now the opportunity to play him a little more. He only had 61 catches last year and only caught 1 touchdown pass. Those numbers are going up. And if they go up and the rushing maintains, you're looking at a running back that might surpass 20 touchdowns. That's the kind of guy that can anchor a championship. And if you're picking first in your draft this weekend, I understand Jamar Chase is the obvious pick. Do not be afraid to take Bijan Robinson.
I think there's a lot of people that have, and we've talked about this on numerous shows already, that the thought process of should I take receivers early, take running backs? It's kind of a mixed bag. I think we're seeing the running back position come back in the first 15 picks of fantasy football and be more prevalent, where a couple of years ago, it was like receivers straight through for like the first 6, 7 picks. Not that case right now. And Bijan's one of the reasons why.
He absolutely is. And if you really think about, and what I remind people of in all of your drafts, most of these leagues you've been in for a few years and you've got some comfort level, think about the waiver wire. When there is a running back available that's going to be the number 1 running back, or a receiver that's going to be the number 1 receiver, I'm going to tell you 99 out of 100 times, that running back's going to be harder to get. And you look at a lot of these now waiver wires where you have X amount of dollars to spend and bid blindly. Running backs are harder to come by. There are just more receivers in the league that can get you. We'll use Adam Thielen as an obvious choice. Right. Let's just say Addison's back, and middle of the year, you lose a couple of your receivers, and you're looking for a plug-and-play guy that can get you 4 to 6 catches, maybe a touchdown every other week. Guys like Adam Thielen are out there. They're easy to find. Finding running backs that are consistent producers is a much more daunting task. So if I'm early in the draft and I'm between and it's a coin flip, and if I have the first pick in the draft, to be honest, I'm going Bijan Robinson over Jamar Chase. Even though Chase might outscore him, the value you get at that position compared to the depth of receivers that are available, to me, it isn't close.
All right, quick conversation. We brought this up last week. When you're drafting, do you think about your starting lineup in fantasy, and that's what you try to draft first when you're drafting? What's your philosophy on that?
I'm going to sound like a lot of GMs, and I mean this sincerely. I let the draft come to me. And by saying that, I don't go in saying, I'm going to go running back here. I'm going to go running back here. Now I've got to fill the receiver. Yeah. I don't want to get locked into that. I want to have the freedom if a certain player falls down. And when I go into a draft, I've got guys that I highlight that I'm looking for and guys I'm looking to avoid. And sometimes just the way it falls, you're going to put yourself, at least I do it, I'm going to put myself, Randy, in a position where I might start the draft having way too many at one spot, knowing that depth at one position can be an asset, especially when you start talking about trades. I love making trades in fantasy. It's one of the most enjoyable aspects for me of playing the game. But no, I'll let the draft come to me. I will take the player that I most want, regardless of position, until we get into the back half of the draft. Now I start to focus in on, okay, I need to have a legitimate backup. I've got a quarterback like Tua in Miami that tends to get hurt. Right. Now I've got to have a reliable backup. Okay, good. I can go get Jordan Love here. And I start to kind of piece the roster together. First half of the draft, I am taking the best, in my eyes, the best fantasy player that's available.
And I think it depends on the leagues that you're in. It depends on if you're playing a best ball league.
Yep.
If you're playing best ball, for me, it's just always the best player. I don't even think about
100%
because I'm not setting that lineup anyway. The computer is setting my lineup for me. So that's a total, I'm talking about more where you are going to set your lineup every week and how you're drafting. When I first started fantasy football, I thought only about my starting lineup. It is so stupid. I would draft a kicker like in round 8 because I was so worried about filling my starting lineup. And I had some success doing that, but I've learned now over the year, and it's been a very hard concept for me to wait until rounds 14 and 15 to take a kicker and a defense to fill that starting lineup. I think depth at running back, this is what I've found in my drafts, is probably for me, the most important thing to make sure that I get in my drafts. Even more important than what my starting lineup would look like. And I'm talking about when I can set my lineup. So I'm only picking about 15, 16 players. I want depth at running back. I want to first of all, I look at those bye weeks. I pay attention to that. I try not to make that be something that changes my mind about players, but I am cognizant of that, and you have to be. But I try to get depth at running back. That to me, and I agree with you, in fantasy football, to me, that's the hardest thing to come up with is quality depth at that running back position.
And I urge all of you as you get ready for your drafts this week, and as you start to pile together these lists, I hope you're going to go to our website at Talk North and download our cheat sheet. It's been updated this week. Fresh opinions are there and waiting for you, but have a game plan and know, okay, I want depth at running back. I want to take some chances at receiver. I'm going to wait on quarterback. I'm going to go early on tight end. Have this in the back of your mind. You can always adjust on the fly. And I think in the back half of the draft, make sure you start looking at your bye weeks. I think, again, early in the draft, pick the best player available. Back half of the draft now, okay, I've got 4 running backs and 3 of them have a week 8 bye. We've got a problem. And you don't want to just throw games away. And same thing at the quarterback position. You want a good, legitimate backup. In most of these redraft leagues, it's a 12-team league. There are plenty of quarterbacks to go around, but there are plenty of quarterbacks that land on the same bye week. And I think sometimes people overlook that, and it can really cause a problem once the season begins. Today, I want to talk a little bit about the Minnesota Masonic Charities. When you think about the Masons, I get it. You think about the funny hats, those pancake breakfasts, which are phenomenal. My dear friend John Schweitz and I have chatted about this, and it's so much more than that. They've got the Masonic home over in Bloomington. They've got the hospital for the children over at the U of M. They are the largest fraternal organization in terms of charitable needs in our country, and they deserve a ton of recognition. So thank you, Minnesota Masonic Charities, for all you do and for supporting us over here at Talk North, and a special thanks to my good friend, John Schweitz.
I'm what you would call the summer procrastinator. There's a lot of us out there. We wait on repairs, hoping they'll fix themselves. And of course, there's no chance of that. Aquarius Home Services can help you with that fix-it list with $98 off any electrical or plumbing repair. Don't let the procrastinator in you ruin what's left of your summer. Schedule today at AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius, local, trusted, family-owned, and earning the right to be recommended. 10K Construction is your one stop for all your general contracting needs, whether interior, exterior, residential, commercial, or multifamily properties. They build relationships with their clients, and that's how they've grown their business through referrals. Plus, they are teaming up with LP SmartSide to become Minnesota's premier siding installer. And they're also partnering with IKO Shingles as well. They've got the best of the best to do the job right. 10K Construction covers both Minnesota and Wisconsin. Now, the rumor is they charge a little extra because it's Packer land. I'm not sure about that. But what I am sure about, 10K Construction is the company you want handling all of your general contracting needs. Go to 10kconstruction.com for details.
Hey, Rosie here for Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. If you're in the market for a new luxury vehicle, look no further than my good friend Charlie Swanson at Lexus. Whether you're on the west or the east side of the Twin Cities, they have got you covered with two great locations, Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Check out the all-new Lexus TX, a spacious SUV with 3 rows of seating and plenty of room for all your gear. Head over to LexusofWayzata.com or LexusofMaplewood.com for details and to find your next ride today.
All right, let's move on. 3 most undervalued players right now in fantasy football. So here are my 3 most undervalued players. Number 1, Davante Adams. 29% target share, 16 end zone targets with Stafford at quarterback last year. And a lot of teams, a lot of fantasy players are not thinking about Adams with Nuka Pakua at wide receiver in Los Angeles and Stafford's health. But I think he's undervalued. Number 2, James Conner. Their offense hasn't changed. He's their workhorse. He was number 1 last year in the league in evaded tackles. He's going to get points in that Arizona offense. I think he's been undervalued.
I would agree.
And has dropped in a lot of my drafts to like rounds 5 and 6, which I think is ridiculous. My last one's Calvin Ridley. Cam Ward and Calvin Ridley have a connection. He's a target monster. He will be with Tennessee. And if Cam Ward can get some protection up front, he's going to find his receivers. And I think Ridley has the potential to have a really big year, and he's undervalued. I think when you look at the receivers, even on our list, we have him around 27, 28. He might have to be moved up, before your draft. And just think about, he's the number 1 guy in Tennessee, and Cam Ward has really proven himself to be a steady influence in that Tennessee offense. So those are my 3
I look
undervalued
at
players.
Ridley and Adams as being very similar guys. I think a lot of times all of us get trapped in fantasy with the new shiny toy,
right,
and trying to make a splash when Captain Reliable and all 3 of your guys fit this category. Like, these guys are proven commodities and they're all in good situations. I love your 3 picks. Calvin Ridley's a guy that nobody's talking about, and this guy could be sitting on a 15 touchdown season. And I think the kid at quarterback has a ton of potential. I like the list. I went with 3 guys, 2 a little off the radar, 1 that I'm shocked is being overlooked. But I'll start with Evan Ingram, the tight end in Denver. He's going off the board at around 13 or 14 on the depth chart at the tight end position, which I don't understand. Sean Payton's a coach that's always driven his offense through the tight end. Think back to his days.
They specifically went to go get him.
And they spent $23 million on this guy for a 2-year contract. Bo Nix is a very good quarterback. And outside of Cortland Sutton, who in the Broncos is going to get the football? This is the guy. Like, trust me, Evan Ingram's a double-digit touchdown guy, and he's being drafted on the back half of the tight end board, which blows my mind. I think he's a top 10 tight end in fantasy this year. Now, you're going to hear Derrick Henry come up, and you're going to think, well, why is Gorg picking Derrick Henry? He's one of the best football players in the league. He is, but why is he going off the board as running back 9, 10, 11, or 12 in almost every draft? He's averaging around the 10th spot on most boards at the running back position. This is a guy last year. This is the average game for Derrick Henry. 113 yards and a touchdown per game. That's only rushing. That's not even the receiving part of the game. That's 17.3 fantasy points in a full point PPR scenario that you can bank on every game. He's a top 5 running back. There's no discussion. And he's still being drafted 9, 10, 11.
Well, don't you think people look at his age? They look at Lamar Jackson stealing a few things.
He does.
But I agree with you. I mean, I love that pick as being undervalued, even though fantasy players probably don't think of him as undervalued. They're not taking him probably where he deserves to be.
And I'll use the shiny toy this way. Everybody loves, and I got more buddies that have texted me about it, and I think Ashton Genty is a wonderful player. It's going to work out great in Vegas. But think of red zone opportunities. The Raiders and the Ravens. It's probably 2-1 Ravens in red zone opportunities. So even if Lamar Jackson
steals a few.
Yeah. You want Derrick Henry over Ashton Genty, and please trust me, I know I'm right. Final one is Josh Downs. You mentioned him already. We have a legitimate quarterback. He missed 3 games last year. He's going to be healthy. He had 107 targets last year, and he's got a better quarterback situation. Going off the board around wide receiver 48. Right. Are you joking? Like, this guy 100% will be a top 30 receiver. Go get Josh Downs. We both talked about it today.
One last comment about Derrick Henry is that their backup, it's not a platoon situation in Baltimore. He is the clear number 1 running back, and the only way Justin Hill is getting on the field or Keaton Mitchell is if Henry needs a quick rest or he gets hurt. So he's going to be there. Have you seen
those videos of him in the offseason working out?
It's unbelievable what he goes through.
We can't factor in his age because he doesn't look or act or play like a guy his age. He is a very unique specimen. He is a Hall of Fame running back that basically has broken the code at that position. Normally, when you're in your late 20s, it's over for you at running back. He just keeps getting better, and last year is living proof of that.
All right. We're out of here for this show. A reminder, next week, we are going to break down each of the games. Kevin and I have split up the schedule, and we're going to give you our thoughts on which players to play, which players to stay away from. We're also going to pick our best starting lineup for fantasy football. If and we'll keep it within reason. I'm not going to play all the greatest players in my lineup. We'll try to
mix it up a little bit.
Daily fantasy. Kevin and I will give you some ideas and some thoughts on daily fantasy. We'll use FanDuel as our, unless you want to do DraftKings, we'll use FanDuel
I'm good
as
with either one. I use them both.
Yeah, we'll use FanDuel as our pricing, and we'll come back with that next week. And we play each other week one in the Talk North League. So we'll have some, I'm sure, some garbage conversation going
Maybe
back
I can trade
forth.
for David Njoku. I got a guy in the room right now that's got him. Maybe I can take that and really slam dunk.
And we will have, I'm sure we'll put a little bet down on our opening game
for sure
in our Talk North League. All right, that's it for this week's edition of Fantasy Huddle. My thanks to Aquarius Home Services, Minnesota Masonic Charities, 10K Construction, and Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood. And we will see you next week. Good luck in your drafts this week.